Hello and welcome to The Ravens, a One Tree Hill podcast. I'm Simon and I love One Tree Hill, and tonight I have a very, very special guest. We have...
My name is Kieren Hutchison. I played Andy Hargrove.
And tonight's episode for debate is no episode because this is a conversation with Kieren Hutchison. Kieren, thank you so much for joining me. I'm honoured. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is fun. It's nice to talk about all this stuff.
Well, I was just explaining just before we were recording that Dom's not here for this one because we're doing our best to keep him spoiler free. But he has some comments and things he wanted me to pass on that I'll pass on as we sort of get there. But if we could just take it all the way back, pre One Tree Hill, pre all of this stuff. How did you first get into acting? Like what sort of got you into it? Were you doing it like in high school, in like theatre groups, or what? How did it begin for you?
Yeah. So, like Andy, I am actually from New Zealand. So it started back there. I did do the school plays when I was quite young. And we had, I lived in a place called Whangarei in New Zealand, which is just north of Auckland. And up there they had a thing called the Northland Youth Theatre. So over summer, which is our Christmas, we would do like plays and we'd all get together. It's like summer camp and you'd rehearse plays and put them on and stuff. So I did that. I think I did that first time when I was like 14, going way back. And I did that a number of years. And then, I was always interested in trying to get into acting, but not living in Auckland back then was like a deficit because that's like the big city, you know. So I had to wait till after I was out of high school. And then there's a television show, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, called Shortland Street.
No, I know the name. I know the name of it now from researching you, but no, I wasn't familiar.
Well, what it was like one of our first, like, you know, somewhat like a Coronation Street soap opera, you know, at nighttime, or the Australian ones would be Neighbours and Home and Away. So ours was Shortland Street, just set in a hospital clinic, and that was my first. That was my first professional audition. So I auditioned for that when I was like 18, and got on there, and did a couple of years there into my early 20s, and that sort of started things off. Really, after that, it was I was just had an acting career in New Zealand for a while, all the way through the 90s until I moved to LA.
And so that's awesome and amazing to like book your like first audition.
It's good and it's bad because after that you think, oh, well, it'll be easy after that, right? And then you realize it's a little harder than that.
Yeah.
It was good and bad.
Well, and then you make the big move over to the States, and so is that straight to get closer to where the big action is to try and get into movies and TVs? I'm assuming that's what drove that move.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the main things. I also just love traveling. I mean, Kiwis love to travel. I did a couple of television shows there, like I did William Tell and Swiss Family Robinson that was shown overseas. And I took some of that money when I was like 24, I guess, and backpacked around Europe for like 6 months. So I always wanted to see the world and, get out of, New Zealand's a great place, but it's so isolated down there. You're just always looking out going, what's out there. So one of the motivations was, just getting out and traveling, which took me to LA. And obviously in LA, want to try to get some good work. So that was about 2002, I think. I was doing little trips there before that, but 2002 is when I really moved to LA. So, and then you just audition a lot and living with your a few friends who are doing the same thing, and it's a really interesting time, And then that's when you find out it is a little harder to get than your first audition.
And so did you book a few other things before you had your audition for One Tree Hill, or was that
I think One Tree Hill was my third job here, I think. I did like an episode of Charmed. Remember Charmed?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I had a scene with Alyssa Milano, which was awesome because I grew up watching her. And I did like an independent movie, and then then One Tree Hill.
And this might be a bit of a naive question, but are some of these roles, are you having to play American, or were you always able to keep your accent?
No, yeah, I would play American often. Yeah. Actually, that was one of the good things about One Tree. Actually, that gets into the One Tree Hill thing. I guess I auditioned originally an American accent because Andy was not a Kiwi, and I had even in New Zealand, like I was on like the first season of Xena Warrior Princess, way back, old school, and these other shows. A lot of the times, they're an American accent down there anyway, so you sort of get used to doing that. So I was comfortable doing that, and the first few auditions, I think I auditioned like 3 or 4 times when you go through the process, and it was always an American accent. And then Mark Swan, who's the creator, I guess on the last audition, he said he'd looked me up or something, and he found out I was from New Zealand. And then he went, "Could we just do this? Actually, I want to hear it. I think that might be interesting." So that it sort of evolved like that.
And so that's awesome. That was going to be one of my questions was
right,
whether
he wasn't.
yeah, like was that meant to be, or that's great. And so when you're doing the audition process, did you have to do like a chemistry test with Moira Kelly? Was that part of it, or?
No, I met Moira on the set. No, it was just like, the first audition, there's lots of people, and then you get your call back, and this is less and less. And I think that last day, there was 2 of us. There was only 2 of us left. And you don't always know. You just know you're getting closer. So you turn up and you go, is there anything else? Okay. And then when we're in there, it was just me and Mark for that last one. We played around for 20 minutes or so. So then well, okay, great. So it's close. We'll go one way or the other. And then you have to wait for a few days. And but no, I never did a chemistry test with Moira or anything.
Well, you had great chemistry with her, so that worked out for the best anyway.
It works out, yeah.
Were you familiar with the show before you were auditioning, or was it a case, because it was quite small at that point, or was it?
It just started, but it was, I was aware of it because it was. I feel like it was already quite popular. And funny thing is, my wife, who's also was an actor back then as well, nearly got on the show. So actually, just before my auditions, like 2 or 3 months before, she auditioned for the character played by Danielle Elizondo.
Oh, yeah, she plays Felix's sister, Anna.
Anna, exactly. So Nicole, my wife, got down to the last couple of people for Anna. So we were actually expecting her to be on the show, and then she missed out at the last minute. They said she looked too young. Some they always have these arbitrary reasons. But actually, we were kind of this close to me and her both being on the show at the same time, because obviously I think our characters were introduced like same episode or around about the same time. So yes, I was very much aware of it. So by the time we'd had that experience with Nicole, but when my audition came through a couple of months later, I was like, oh, well, that's kind of fun. This show keeps popping up.
Yeah, well, it kind of the show maybe started small, but it erupted into being this thing that is known around the world. I mean, the fact that we're talking now, in the UK,
that's crazy, right?
Yeah, insane, and it lives on. Like the fandom seems to continue, and especially with streaming services. I mean, how does that feel to be associated with something that has a life that doesn't seem to be stopping?
I think it's great. It's like when I was more in the demographic for watching the show, because I was like 30 when I joined. It was 90210 for me when I was watching stuff when I was like a teenager. So I was, even at the time, I always thought that was kind of like the touchstone of like, we had the OC and One Tree Hill were like the 2 shows at the time where it was a similar kind of phenomenon to those 90s shows. But it was also before, when I was on, it was before the internet really took off in the way of Twitter and Facebook and all these things that I think are extending the life of it. And as you said, the streaming services. And so you couldn't even see that coming. At the time, you just like on it and think it's great, and they rerun it a couple of times, and that's usually the end of it, right? But here we are, and doing the conventions that people have been doing, and younger people who would have been really young when it first came out, or babies, they're discovering it now. I think that's interesting. When people come up to you who are quite young, like, how old were you when it was first on? But I think it's great. I love it.
It's kind of a nice period of time as well, in terms of the show is set where there isn't social media and there isn't, people are on flip phones, but they're not on their phones all of the time. It's kind of like a nice capsule of a bit like Pleasantville almost, but with tons of drama, But
no, it's true that the longer it goes on, the more unique that little time feels, which I think is an interesting thing about getting older and how fast things are moving these days. But I remember Andy having a really cool phone at the time. I don't know if you've seen everything. So later on, with Jules at the wedding, and he had like a Razor. Remember those Razor phones?
Mm-hmm.
It's like very cool. It's kind of quaint now when you think about these computers we play around with it.
I love it. Well, I mean, so you enter the show. I would say that your character's entrance is probably one of my favorites. In when you sit down next to Karen and
the audition film, by the way.
It was
that scene over and over and over again.
Well, it shows because that it's flawless. Like, I love the way that you get up and the whole, commanding the room and you as the teacher and about. Can you run a business without greed? And it's great. It's such a great. It makes you. It likens you to Andy's character immediately.
Right. Yeah, it is very so much kind of manipulative in that way. Where it's like, you're gonna like this guy because look at this. He's gonna say these things that are and it helps when you agree too. I was reading those lines going, yeah, I agree with that. So it's very easy to hook on them.
And you get to play someone that's like a multi-millionaire. I mean, you're basically like Bruce Wayne. You're just not. We just haven't seen Andy be Batman yet. But I mean,
yeah, that's the secret. It's One Tree Hill After Dark, right?
Was it had like it must be cool to be playing a character that is going to be likable and it is going to be cool, compared to there must be, roles that you have to play where it's like, well, it's a bit nothing, or you're playing the antagonist. I mean, was that something that drew you to the role as well, being such like a likable character that became a fan favorite? Yeah,
and those things are true, but it's also interesting where you are fully aware of the fact that you are there to complicate another storyline, if you know what I mean. So you're operating on different levels where, like for me, the whole One Tree Hill experience was very Karen-centric. Like I was there to, be in Karen's life, and that obviously bled into Lucas and some of the other characters. But there's a lot of characters I never met, really. I met all these people as real people, as the actors, and that's kind of the way I think of it. But so it's funny, I have a different relationship with the show. But you do know that, okay, so absolutely, Karen and Keith are going to get back together at some point. But for now, and my job was to make the audience a little conflicted. Like, I know they want Karen to get back together with Keith, and they should, because that's the bigger picture. But that's one of it.
So did you know that you were gonna that it was just gonna be for season 2, or how did that go?
Yeah, so no, you don't know how long. In my case, and this is kind of typical with recurrings, especially in America. You don't know how long you're going to be on. When I auditioned, I knew the function of the character, that you're there for Maura Kelly's love interest, and you're going to be around for a while. But I think I was contracted for 4 episodes to begin with, and they say maybe there'll be more, and you stick around as long as they'll have you. So yeah, and then I think it's like, are you available next week? Just availability, and they just keep adding it on. But when it ended, to a certain extent, it's a natural thing that happens when you're recurring at the end of a season. They're deciding what's going to happen in the next season. And from what I understand, they decided, okay, it's time for Karen and Keith. And they solved the Andy problem by deporting me, I think. Was I deported? I was deported, right?
You were deported, yeah.
Bloody Dan. And then, yeah, I would have found out when I got the script. you go, all right, cool. So I'm going to go for a while. And it was open-ended, but with no firm plans. So when they got in touch with me again, I think it was season 5.
I think 5, yeah.
That was a surprise too, to be honest. You know, I'd moved on, but happy to go back.
And and it was awesome when you came back as well. You kind of continued. You had nice moments with Lucas, with Chad Michael Murray's character. I mean, how, as you said earlier, that you spent a lot of your time with the same sort of characters with Lucas, Karen, obviously, and then Dan. There started a great rivalry with Dan, and I remember watching it for the first time when I watched it. 10 years ago or so now. I loved it. I loved that I was like, this is the perfect match for Dan, someone that's got more money than him, that's potentially more charming, more everything. And there were some great moments. I mean, did you enjoy those scenes with Paul Johansson?
Oh yeah, that was great. That was awesome. Because like I said too, a lot of it is very Karen centric, and I love those scenes. And I met people adjacent to Karen, and a whole bunch of the cast, characters Andy never had anything to do with. So when it expanded to Dan, I thought I had a lot of fun with that. Because I really got on with Paul too off screen. He's a lot of fun. I know you guys interviewed him, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so it was fun to rehearse things with him and find things with him on set. I think there was that one thing where we were in the car dealership, and he throws that
the window,
throws that thing through the glass. I mean, that's just fun stuff where you're like, I got under your skin, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I loved all of that. It was great. I mean, was there anybody else that you particularly enjoyed your scenes with? Well, I guess that it was mainly those 3, I guess, right?
Yeah, all 3 of those people were great. I got on really well with Chad. We had a lot to do with each other off screen for a while there, and it was odd because I was 30 years old at the time. So I don't know, what is that like? I feel like I was 8 or 9 years older than those main characters.
Yeah,
the main actors. So dating his mum on screen, and to the extent that we had some scenes where I was kind of like a father figure giving him advice and everything. It was a bit of a laugh in some ways because I'm like, I don't know, what am I talking about? I'm not that much older than you anyway, But I think that was kind of like a nice dynamic for Lucas to have this older figure who's can still relate to him a little bit. And that was fun with all that little Lucas stuff in the beginning, where I think he's just going to be this little kid.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed all that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, I think Andy just has this great blend of being very, very friendly, very personable. You don't really have any really negative qualities. I mean, in that way, is that hard to live up to be such the sort of baby face hero in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're following the writing to a certain extent. Whatever they give you, you're working out how to make it truthful. And try to relate it back to your life. But I don't know. I think there was a little bit of. He was pretty forward with the way he was coming on to one of his students. I thought that was interesting. I like that dichotomy of obviously he's written in as this nice guy and all these morals and money and all this stuff, but and Dan later on exploited that when he comes on in and. I think he got me fired, or he was trying to get me fired before he got me deported. I mean, he was, very interested in Andy on some level. But on some level, that was a little bit of Andy's fault because he had opened himself up to that. But at the same time, playing the truth of the fact that he, really had a connection with Karen, was in love with her, and was looking for ways to make it work. There's a dichotomy there, but I didn't think it was all sunshine and light. He when he went toe to toe with Dan, I think it's because he knew how to be ruthless. He knew how to make money and have a bit of a shady side when it comes to, because he had that whole arc where before he had that car accident, he was a bit more selfish and he's on the phone and he's wheeling and dealing. So I feel like I had some stuff to hook into that he wasn't always this guy. There was a past here lots of money to get up to mischief, and he did. We just happened to be meeting him at a time where he had sorted himself out a little bit and got a connection with Kieren. So I think you look for, it's not just what's on the page. It's not just what this character has to do in this show, but what was he before, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's true. And I think I glossed over it there. I kind of, the backstory, because we haven't got to that part. I've seen the show in full like 5 times, but I haven't, me and Dom looking at it in this level of detail of like, we do a 3-hour podcast pretty much for every single episode. So it's very much,
that's great.
It's very detailed. So when we get to, Andy's backstory, we'll be all into it, checking the dates, getting all into the detail.
Look, I until you got in touch a little while back, I'd forgotten all this stuff too. I cheated a little bit. I went back and had a look. Like, what did I do? What was that? I was like, but I do remember thinking that at the time. Of like, okay, so they have given you some stuff to where he's not necessarily as good as he seems. But and theoretically they could have, that's open to the writers to have made him go in a dark way, and they didn't. And I like that they didn't, because we do get that fairy tale ending for Kieren later on. I think that it's nice sometimes just to be somebody who isn't creating the drama, isn't a bad guy.
Yeah, completely. And so, have you seen the show? You can be honest, all the way through. Did you watch the rest of the seasons that you weren't in?
I did not. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, starting with the fact that I felt a little old for it in demographic wise. And then ending with the fact that and this is true for a lot of shows I've been on, once you're on it and you've met the people, there's a suspension of disbelief that is broken.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any shows I've watched, after actually being on it, and if they've continued after me, it's pretty rare for me to keep watching, just because I'm watching my friends do scenes more than I'm invested in the characters. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's like,
so it's probably a combination of both of those things.
Yeah, you've seen behind the curtain, so it's like you can't unsee that, so that makes sense.
And I'm sure that's not always true, and other people may feel differently, but that was my experience. And that's the thing, is I was aware of the show before I auditioned for it, but from afar, it wasn't, it wasn't. Again, I was 30 years old, so it's a bit different, I guess. And I'd done all that with. I was a big fan of 90210 when I was watching. Saw Paul Johansson on there back in the day, and so I feel like I'd already been on my emotional roller coaster when it comes to a show like that. So that's where I was at.
What? And so what happened after One Tree Hill with you? So what did you go on to? I mean, I've seen that. Is it your son does A Kid Explains History? That's done really well.
That's right. Yeah, that's my boy, who's also called Quinn. And he's 13 years old now, and he's been doing it since he was like 8. So that's something I've been producing with him for a few years now. Becoming a bit of a YouTuber. But with the idea of having kids learn history and have them be interested in that, because he was interested in it. I've always been a history buff, so now that the tools are all available, for us to do these podcasts and YouTube, I've really enjoyed that. Building it up and trying to get a following and licensing it to people, and he, I'm a dad, but he's great on screen. He's just like so relaxed. Right from the get go, he's just so good at it. So I'm like, we're trying to encourage his interest in it. But that's been the thing in the last few years, and I've been doing a lot of writing and getting into script writing and things like that. But straight after One Tree Hill, when I left, God, was it 2005 or 6?
Yeah, around.
My wife, who, as I said, nearly ended up playing Anna, she ended up getting a TV show on ABC Family called Wildfire. That ran for like 4 seasons, and she was one of the main cast in there out in Albuquerque. And on the second season, I got written in, and then got cast in a mini series for Lifetime it was interesting, like playing the third wheel on to somebody else's storyline on One Tree Hill, and then I ended up being the main guy in this this miniseries called Monaco that was shot down in Australia, ironically. So you got, and somebody else was casted as our third wheel. So it's kind of funny how it all kind of, you get on different sides of those dynamics. But yeah, so just kept acting there. I went back to New Zealand for a little while, ironically, to go back and play the same character that my first job ever, the Shortland Street role.
Oh, nice.
A while back, they got in touch and said, "You want to come back and do a year?" It was like 15-year gap or something. So I did that. Took my boy and my wife down to New Zealand, and we've been back here for a while now too. So life is good, Just been getting through lockdown in the last year.
Yeah, completely, definitely. And I have to say,
I chose the wrong country. I could have been in New Zealand this whole time, and here I am in LA. I'm like, oh, okay.
I know. Well, my wife is a really big fan of netball, and netball is massive in New Zealand, and so she watches it on TV here, and we could see just the crowds. Like, there's no or anything. Yeah. It was completely fine.
All my friends are on Facebook at rock concerts and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm happy for them. It's great. They're doing the right thing. So, getting on top of things is a good thing. But it's interesting. We mentioned earlier, I think, all these connections to New Zealand with One Tree Hill. Obviously, they ended up making my character a New Zealander. But from what I understand, obviously there's a One Tree Hill in Auckland. There's so many volcanoes in Auckland, and one of the dormant ones is called One Tree Hill. Literally, I don't think it does anymore, but it used to have one tree on it. And U2, the rock band U2, do you know this, right? Is this part of everybody knows this? Okay, so when U2 did the One Tree Hill song, I think that's how Mark Schwann hooked into it. Mm-hmm. So that was another reason that I thought was that I think the show first got on my radar when I was living here, because I went, that's got to be about Auckland, right? There's got to be some connection. And it took me a while before I found out that story about the song. And then they worked it into some of my dialogue, which I think you've just watched.
Literally, the episode just gone, yeah. And me and Dom were going. Dom was having issue with it because he was like, "Should it be called One Tree Hill? Is that a mistake?" And he was like, "No. It's actually One Tree Hill."
It does feel like a strange bit of trivia in a way. It's a little bit out of left field, but I know the guys back home thought that was fun when it first aired back in the day. They're like, "Oh, look, a bit of a shout out," you know what I mean? But no, that's true. That's because I grew up in Auckland, so I was very familiar with the area. So I did enjoy that. Like, up until that point, my biggest role in America was connected to home like that. I thought that was fun.
It's awesome. It's really cool. And I have to say, I didn't know.
Great song too.
Great song, yeah, for sure. I have to say, I didn't know where to slot this in because this is an odd thing to say. But you've aged incredibly well. You look great. So congratulations on that.
Well, yeah, now I'm really glad I've done this podcast. That's the whole reason.
Well, show my face. I have some fan questions, if that's okay, from some of our listeners. I also I have to ask a question I always ask anyone that's been in a show or movie or anything is, did you get to keep anything from the show, like any props or anything like that?
I'm trying to think. Not props. I think they would have been a bit angry if I'd gone off with the prop. But like when you're more when you're one of the main cast or the lead, you can get away with that stuff. I don't think recurring. So, like, put that down. But we got some great gifts. Like, we got like wrap gifts, like tote bags with One Tree Hill emblazoned on there, and I've got some of those things at home. And some scripts. I think I kept the first script. Which is also fun now too, because these days they email them to you and print out the sides and everything, but they used to give you the whole script and have it shipped out to you, So that feels like a relic from the past. But no, I think that's it. Just off the top of my head, I don't think I have anything else. Good question, though.
You have the memories. I also ask because then I try and buy them from you, because you can probably see I have some.
I see, yeah, you got some great stuff back there.
Yeah, well, I actually managed to get Paul Johansson's jacket off of him, his Ravens jacket.
Oh, really? So that's his?
Yeah. So this was it was in your season. So it was there's an episode where I think Nathan's in like a coma, as you do, and he has a vision or a dream that him and Lucas switch places. Like, what would have happened if basically Dan had stayed with Karen.
This rings a bell. Okay, yep.
And then in that episode, Dan is the assistant coach to Whitey, and he's never been he's basically a bit of a shy guy and this, that, and the other. And then he wears this jacket, and then when I asked him the question about whether he had props and whatever, he said that he was about to auction this stuff off for charity. And so instantly I was like, don't auction it. Let's talk afterwards. We'll work it out.
It's fantastic. Yeah. You shipped it over. That's awesome. So you got better memorabilia than I have. So
okay.
Well, hey, that's funny. You mentioned Whitey. That's actually another connection, because sometimes there's all these weird connections, like how my wife nearly got on there, and the New Zealand connection. Barry Corbin came down to New Zealand in the year 2000, like before Montreal, and I knew him from Northern Exposure and all these great things from back in the day. And I got cast in a movie called No One Can Hear You. It's a thriller, right? And Kelly McGillis was the lead, and that would happen sometimes, and still does in New Zealand. A whole bunch of American actors will come down, and we'll do like a show or a TV series, and we'll pretend Auckland is LA or something, like they do in Toronto, for New York. So anyway, I was in there as one of the red herrings of who's the bad guy, and I hung out with Barry Corbin a few times, and great guy. And literally, so it would have been 4 years later, I'm on set, and I'm like, "Hi, Barry." Guy from New Zealand, following around the world. You know what I mean? He's like, "What?" Took him a second. I'm like, "What the hell? How do we know each other?" So yeah, it's fun. Sometimes it's funny how you have these connections, And my wife loved it's Cutting Edge is what it's called, right? The Maura Kelly. Did you ever see that one?
No.
That's actually really good. It's a good little movie. But my wife grew up idolizing her in that movie. So when she came out to visit us on set, we had dinner with Maura and her husband and Nicole got to fangirl out on her. So that was it's all sweet stuff,
That's awesome. I'm going to check that movie out now on your recommendation. Okay, so Alicia says, does he still keep in touch with any of the cast? She also says, "Oh my God, you got Andy on the podcast. Congratulations."
You found Andy. Andy's out there somewhere. Cool. We've mostly gone our separate ways now, but I still am in contact with Tyler Hilton. He just had his baby, and we text about that, and have seen each other a few times. I went to his wedding a couple of years back, and actually at the wedding caught up with Hillary and a bunch of people. Chad and I were in contact for a long time. I haven't seen him for a few years now. Life just sort of moves on. And Paul, I talk to every now and then. But no, I haven't seen Maura pretty much since. I don't think I've seen Maura since we wrapped that last one. Because she doesn't. We haven't been living in the same places or anything like that. And a lot of the other guys I knew in passing, just to say hi to and hang out with. Oh, Lee Norris, she used to live with us. We had a house out here, and what we would do, because we're commuting so much between LA and North Carolina, and a lot of those guys had houses out in North Carolina, and they needed bases in LA, and we had a spare room. So Lee, for like a year or so back when we're on the show, he'd keep his stuff in our house. And every time he was in town, we'd all hang out. But then he was doing so many episodes, he was always out in North Carolina. So, so I was quite close to Lee for a while there too. But love all those guys. Whenever I see them, it's fun. But in terms of day-to-day life, not so much anymore. No, we're all sort of doing our thing.
I love that, by the way. I can't believe I feel like that's an exclusive, a little Lee Norris.
Well, because that's the thing. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't think Andy and Mouth ever met. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see why they would have.
They're pretty much bipolar opposites of characters. And
actually also, yeah, very much. And also, same with Tyler. I don't think we had anything to do with each other. But me and Tyler and Chad used to hang out a bit. Tyler was young then too. I don't think he was even 21 yet when we go out to a bar and all that stuff. But I think I remember taking him out on his 21st birthday. So, it goes way back. But, and it was, when I was there, it was very, social, and everybody was, especially young cast, were hanging out. And so, there was, there was a good camaraderie there. But And again, I don't know about later seasons because I wasn't there. But
Well, it wasn't the same without you. Don't bother. It was garbage. No, I'm joking. It was great. We love it. Obviously, we're doing the podcast, but
that's right.
And Tyler Hilton's got a great voice. I really enjoy his music. That's awesome.
Yeah, I loved watching him go play back then. You did a few shows and you do like little intimate cafe situations around town. It was really great. Very talented.
That's awesome. I've got a question in here, but it's in French, so I can't read it. But so I'm sorry. I
wouldn't understand it either. So
yeah. Bailey says, "What was your favorite memory on the set of One Tree Hill?"
Favorite memory on the set. I was just. I'm trying to think. I loved shooting in Karen's cafe. Because have you been? I don't know if you've been to Wilmington.
Dom and I are actually we're the crescendo of this podcast. We've already arranged it. So I don't know if you know, but there's an organization called FWB. I don't know if you've done anything with them, but they basically do charity events. But they rent Trick. They actually have the premises and they run events once or twice a year in there. Actually, Tyler Hilton is playing a virtual concert there at the end of March. Everyone check.
Perfect.
But we're going, Dom and I, in 2025 because that's how long it's going to take to finish the podcast, and we're going to do our final episode from Trick in Wilmington, and then we get to go and stuff. So
that's great. That'd be awesome.
Well,
and they've decked it out. They deck it out like it was in the show, and they have it all.
Yeah, exactly the same. They've got loads of props and things from the show, and then things are recreated. And it's like walking into the set as if it's actually happening.
That's great. That'll be awesome. 2025 is going to take. Yeah, I guess if you're going every episode, holy crap.
It's a 4.5 year commitment, and I have an 11-week-old baby as well, so it's, sometimes it's difficult to be like, I'm just going to spend 3 hours talking to my friend about One Tree.
Yeah, right. I'm sure that's going down really well. No, you're working it out. That's awesome. Isn't that great when they're young like that? It's so cool. I mean, Quinn's 13, but I still remember taking lots of pictures. Just take lots of pictures, lots of video. We still put those things on. But to answer the question, I loved things like Karen Cafe and to a certain extent Trick too. But they kept the sign up and everything when we're there. I don't know what it is now. Maybe it is. I don't know. But at the time, the facade was there. So and all the locals knew about it. People would take pictures outside, and you'd see some fans of the show sometimes. And then you would you'd literally walk on in, and you're not on a stage, you're not on a sound stage, you're not on a set. You're in this coffee shop. And I found that lovely because all of the Wilmington, just staying there for when you were shooting episodes was lovely. So I used to always enjoy shooting there because a lot of the other stuff was on a set, so it's like a regular show. So
that's awesome. I have to just ask. So with Trick, did you film in the actual like warehouse? That wasn't on a studio. That was just in the warehouse.
Yep. Yeah, it was right in the warehouse.
That's awesome. Very cool.
So those two, those two sets especially were fun because a little bit less of the suspension of disbelief. You feel like you're really there and you're really walking into a place. I like that.
That's really cool. Sarah says, so excited for this one. Love Andy. Any idea that you'd be back in season 6 with Karen? Well, I guess you said you didn't know. That was a nice surprise.
No, I didn't know. I did follow the show a little bit afterwards, and I heard that Keith got shot, and I was like, "Oh, really? Shot?" No. And then they called us pretty much out of the blue. I just got back from making that show in Australia, and I just had my son. That was actually the same year, 2007. So I was in your situation, but he was even smaller. And I think there was some talk. You hear stuff, behind the scenes. I think there was some talk about actually, going on for a few more because I think in 2 episodes. I think it was going to be a few, but it was contingent on whether or not Moria was coming back because I think Moria had left the show too as a regular. So I think when she decided, or it didn't work out for her to come back for a long time, then they wrapped it up in a nice way, I think. But was a surprise, and it was really nice to go back after a few years and having done other things and to see everybody again and be in Wellington again, and nice and nostalgic. Not as nostalgic as it is now. Now it feels like a long time ago. But even after a couple of years, it was like, oh, good. Let's see my friends again.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think when you know that it's like a nice atmosphere and people have enjoyed it and people are friends, it makes it nicer to watch the show. Like, there are stories about some, film sets and TV sets where people don't get along. And then when you watch it,
it sounds miserable, huh?
Yeah.
Miserable.
It kind of translate over. But when you know people have enjoyed it, it's like, oh yeah, well, it comes across. So I think it's nice. This is a good one. So Oki asks, this is not One Tree Hill related, it's just about you. What is your ultimate series that you binge watch? Like, do you have any guilty pleasures?
Guilty pleasures. I heard someone tweet the other day, there is no such thing as a guilty pleasure. You like what you like, which I think is kind of fun. But yes, I get it. In terms of binging, yeah, I love binging. Me and my wife will do hours a night. I joined Breaking Bad really late, which I recommend because when you get into that rhythm and then you find out you have to wait for another year for the next season, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. So we came in like in the last season and just watched it all in like 3-4 weeks, and that was life changing because I think that's an amazing show. Right now I'm watching Babylon Berlin. Have you seen that?
No.
It's a German show, but it's on Netflix. It's a historical show about Germany in the 30s, but it's really good. And we loved Game of Thrones, all these things. So a lot of the basic ones, but that's a little obscure. Babylon Berlin, but I recommend it. That one's great. Subtitled.
Have you seen? You lost me a subtitle.
Exactly. It was like, well, I have to read it.
Have you this is where Dom would be like wanting to say something because he loves historical things. One of his favorite shows of all time is Band of Brothers. Have you seen that?
Right. Yeah. I saw that one. Yeah. That's great back in the day, like 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
Band of Brothers, that was good. And Peaky Blinders. I've been watching Peaky Blinders.
Mm-hmm.
It's and I'm glad too because it's late. I've just started in like 5 seasons in, so I'm like, good. I can just blast through all of those. But history's always been. I've always been a lot of the historical movies and TV shows kind of get close to the truth, not slavishly, but they start to feel like they're truthful. I'm very into that. I like the immersive stuff.
Nice. So awesome.
I think we have something in common, me and Don.
I think you do.
Too bad he's not here, but he doesn't want to hear what happens to me, right? He doesn't want to hear all this stuff.
He doesn't want to
completely
know.
Ruins it.
He'll be devastated that you're not.
And by the way, it's a pretty neat trick. It's a pretty neat trick after all these years. I mean, if he goes on the internet, he has to make sure he doesn't see anything. Huh?
It's basically we protect him. So like he doesn't have.
He's in a One Tree Hill bubble.
Exactly, in a non-One Tree Hill bubble, yeah.
And the outside One Tree Hill.
Yeah, it's difficult because we get messages like every day. Like we've been really lucky to have like a pretty big listenership. I think a lot of it is because people are interested to hear two male perspectives on the show,
right.
And our humor is a little bit blue, like we're especially to get it together because we've known each other all our lives, so
you start feeding off each other,
and we've had a laugh with it, and I think so I think that's maybe interesting because a lot of the other podcasts, which are great, but they've been like female driven, and because it's kind of more of a female show, I guess.
Yeah, you guys definitely have got a unique perspective on it. I like that idea of somebody who, the fan who's seen everything and, someone being introduced. It's a great pleasure. Even with my son getting old enough now, going through all the old movies, old movies even just from the 90s and 80s, for him old, last century. And the really old ones, Casablanca and everything, sitting him down and go, all right, let's watch this. And watching somebody else enjoy something you already love is actually... I really like that.
I can't wait to do that. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. But that
I know it's sitting there going, get older. Come on, we got these things to watch.
Yeah, I need to show you like Back to the Future and all of these things.
Yeah. Well, and they do. They tend to take to it in the sense that they've got so much entertainment. They got so many new things to watch. But those ones like Back to the Future, all those classics that really stand up, they work. They just work again. Which I think is good to see.
But has your son seen any of One Tree Hill, or would you let him watch it, or at any point, or?
Oh yeah, no, I don't mind letting him watch it. No, I think he's seen a little bit. He's dabbled into. I mean, I think it's tough when it's when it's your dad or your mom. Like he's watched some of Wildfire with Nicole stuff, and he watched some of my William Tell because William Tell is like that was another one. We only did one season of that, but it's still sort of shown in certain places throughout the world, and they're a bit like what you're talking about with One Tree Hill's lasted a long time. There are people who grew up with that show and they get in touch and they're all like, I grew up watching that, which is really bizarre and fun because it was just a great job I did when I was, in my early 20s. But I remember recording watching that a little bit and just being confused, going, what am I watching exactly? Because it's all very fantasy and long hair and all this silly stuff. And he's like, that's you? That doesn't look like you. I'm like, so no, he hasn't exactly hooked in. It's a bit like what I said about not watching the rest of One Tree Hill. His suspension of disbelief with me is, not going to happen.
Yeah,
maybe later on. I don't know. But he's been intrigued. I think once you first start Googling and stuff too, you go, you're all over the internet. What the hell's this for these specific things? I'm like, yeah. It didn't exist when I was doing those shows. It just exists now. Everything's forever.
Could you imagine? Yes. Could you imagine?
It's something to remember. Everything's forever. It just stays there, man.
Well, that's worrying when we're doing 3-hour podcasts every week. But
yeah, you guys better watch your blue language.
Well, could you imagine if social media and Instagram and stuff was as it is now when One Tree Hill was on? Like you'd have 1 million followers in like a month, like as in it's.
Well, and some of those some of the cast members who went all the way through, obviously they got at the tail end, right? Because it was off 2010 or 11 or around there.
Yeah, around.
So there. Yeah, I guess those guys all very much did experience that. And I have other friends who've been on similar shows like now, and you see, their Twitter following, all this stuff is just like crazy. And from what I understand too, especially with the younger guys, it affects casting. Like when you get down to the last two, like I was with Andy, if they can't decide, they'll just sit there and go, well, who's got more Twitter followers? It's crazy stuff, And that's a whole economy that we did not have to deal with back then. So yeah, it does occur to you that that would have been a very different experience, with the modern environment. But I'm really glad that it was nice and quaint and this long ago thing. But it's also I'm very active on social media. I enjoy it too. So it's good. It's good and bad.
I was super happy to find you. I think.
Right, you found me on Instagram, right? There you go. See, there it is.
I was super happy to find you, and then I always worry that like I don't want to like bother someone. Like it's kind of this thing of like I want to ask you to be on the pod. I want you to know that we love you and we think you're great and we're fans. But you never know if it's like someone's just like, oh, I don't, just want to be left to their life, So yeah.
Well, and wait, first of all, you guys were very respectful in how you asked and everything. And if I hadn't answered, I hope you wouldn't have held it against me.
Of course not.
It's just not personal. You know what I mean? I feel like those people who do want to be left alone or feel like that's not something I want to deal with, you just wouldn't hear from them.
Yeah.
I feel like you're in control of that. You know what I mean? I don't feel like people are, if people are, it is kind of weird with the DMs where people just say, hi. You're like, hi, what do you want from me exactly? If you're starting a conversation or you got a particular question or it's a bit different, but that's kind of weird. But I get it. I would have done the same thing when I was younger if my people I was fans of were on social.
It's people feel contactable now. It's like it's a weird,
absolutely, and they are in ways that they never were. Yeah, I mean this was unheard of, right?
Totally.
You used to have to send a letter, like you mail a letter.
Yeah.
Maybe if a while back someone writes something back, or you get some shitty picture with your signature on it. If you're lucky.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
way better to be a fan these days.
Yeah, it's different. It's a whole different level. But I mean, we've asked people. So Dom and I used to do a movie podcast, and we've had it was 90s movies. So we had people, a lot of like child stars that were like from movies when we were kids, like from like the Mighty Ducks and Little Giants, and
great,
on, like which was great, and we loved it. But we had loads of people that, you know, said no, and we're always like, well, yeah, of course, that's completely your choice. Some people aren't into talking about that; they've moved on, or they're doing other things, and we completely respect that. But we're thrilled that you know that you said yes. We've got just a couple more, if that's okay. So from
Absolutely.
OTH Forever, who is Sarah Gallo's mum. I can't remember. Mary, I think. Sorry, Mary, if I've got your name wrong. She said, "What type of projects are you up to now?" We spoke about that. So you're doing that. So I'll put the description to your son's YouTube channel.
I'd love to. Yeah,
link.
Please. Always want to let people know about the show, and especially if you have young kids. If you got any kids under, I don't know, under 10 for sure, but even his age, they love it. They eat it up. And it's the first time they've been introduced to these subjects, like who is Napoleon and what was World War II, and it's very much introductions to these subjects. And Quinn's the host. It's in his words, you know, helped by me, but his words. And actually, now that he's older, he's basically writing it. But when he was younger, it was a bit more of a collaboration. He's taking ownership of it now. So yeah, anybody with who either doesn't know the history and wants to learn it, or has kids and wants to introduce it, I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I watched some of it. I liked it. It was really good, and I liked it's nice and like a nice introduction, like you said, and really successful. Like it's like massive hits on there. It's great.
Yeah, it's been getting good views, and we've been starting to get licensing deals, which is lovely. It's going to end up on some streaming channels and stuff. People just, you know, I mean, you know how it is with what you're doing. People get in touch, and it starts to take on its own sort of life. Which was not always the intention. It was just really getting stuff out there, and Quinn had an interest. But now it's kind of like, great, you know, I'm happy people are watching. You know, so yeah, absolutely, the link would be good. I haven't been acting as much recently. I still do things when they come up, but I haven't really been focusing on it. I did a TV movie last year with Samaria Armstrong, and that was fun. I had my beard and tried to look a little older. When it grows out, it's a little gray, so I'm kind of enjoying that, you know, getting into a different age group, if it makes sense. But, you know, I just do that every now and then. And I've been writing, my wife and I have been writing together scripts, and we've got a couple of movies getting close to production. This whole COVID thing has put a bit of a spanner in the works, so we're waiting for everything to settle down, but you know, it's had some stuff optioned and making attachments, and that's really what I would like to do is produce and write, maybe direct, but mainly at the moment producing and writing stuff, because we found we really enjoy it as movie fans and as actors, and you know, I've been on set since I was 25 years now. It was that first job, so I've seen a lot of changes and everything, but finding out, thinking of the sort of stories you want to tell and how you want to tell them, and using your taste. These are all things that actors don't always like, especially on a show like One Tree Hill. This is Mark Schwann's show. This is their baby, and you're there to facilitate. You're there to bring your contribution to it and help make it work for what they want. But yeah, there's a real joy in going, I'd like to do something this way, you know. So that's been a big focus now. I wrote a book too. Wrote a novel in this last little while. It's so crazy. It's like, because I had, you know, more time on my hands. I'm like, all right, you know, one of the stories we have is a science fiction story. It's a little bit expensive an idea for a TV series, but thought, all right, well, while I have this time and we've got it all planned out, we sat down and I actually just finished the first draft. It's not finished, but you know, completed the pages like a month or two ago, and now I'm into revisions, and that's been great. Like I've never written anything that ambitious before, and love it.
Wow!
Can't wait to get it out in the world. I'll be working on getting that published as soon as I can, and try to drum up. So you know, stay tuned for that.
That's crazy. Multifaceted, multi-talented.
Just keeping busy, you know, keeping busy.
I want to read the book. When the book is published and it comes out, will there be a...
You like science fiction?
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of science fiction, so with this whole spoiler-free thing, Dom and I are about to start a second podcast where the premise is flipped round. So he is the expert in the show, and it's a show that I've never seen. And we're about to start Star Trek: The Next Generation. So that's about as sci-fi as it can get, right? So.
Quinn just burned through every Star Trek property. Like, I started him with the original series. We went to the 80s movies, and then he did Next Generation and all of it. Like, I think he's up to the new ones now, Discovery and everything. So he just took to it big time. So that's fun. So it'll be the other way around.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of the original Star Trek, and I was saying this to my wife this morning because I was trying to watch the first.
You haven't seen any of the 60s one?
None of it. And I was saying that doesn't feel right with me. Like, I like to watch from the very beginning, so I might have to try and binge through those ones and then get to the Next Generation. But yeah,
it's funny. I remember when JJ did those reboots, which is around about when I left One Tree Hill, and I remember putting myself down on tape for Captain Kirk because you're around the right age and all that stuff. You know, you always try to get, all these like things that would have been great. And one of my ex-acting buddies back in the day, Carl Laban, he ended up playing Bones. But we started out in Shortland Street. When I that show Shortland Street I did when I was 18, pretty much all my scenes were with Carl back in the day. So it's funny, all these people, come and go from. So I guess that was a long way of saying that's when I really got. I watched it a little bit when I was younger, but when you're like, oh, maybe you get a chance of being in the movie, you dive on into that stuff. So I remember watching all of those William Shatner ones back in the day and thinking they all have the fun. They're kitschy. They're very 60s. You meet them where they're at, but there's some good stuff in there,
Yeah, awesome. Well, and that's awesome about Star Trek. Your book, I want it, and what I want to. Obviously, I'm going to buy it, but I need a signed copy. Can we work this out? You can't.
I think this is something that we can definitely work out, Simon. I think we can. I think we can arrange that.
Excellent. I can't wait. Well, wait. I've got two more. So Nathaniel asks, how did you feel about Karen and Andy ending up together? So you said you kind of feel happy that there was a happy ending for Andy and Karen, right?
Yeah, no offense to Keith, but when it comes to the third wheel, I guess I won in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Too bad you got shot, Keith.
Again, nothing bad to say about the guy, but you just got to be patient.
Just wait.
And have $50 million.
That's it. Yeah, just wait it out, and they might get shot by their brother. Who knows?
No, this is taking a dark turn. I don't mean this. I had nothing to do with it. That was not me.
This is how our podcast really goes. This is what it's.
Exactly. It's like, wait a minute.
And then the last one is from Marine. So there's a couple questions here. I'll read them all through. She got excited, I think. But you've answered a lot of them, but we'll see. She said, how was your experience playing a character on such an iconic show? If you had the chance to play any other... Oh, this is good. Any other character in One Tree Hill, who would it have been? Have you seen the show all the way through? Answered that. And who was your favorite and least favorite character from the bits that you did see? Sorry, I threw too many questions at you.
No, that's good. I think I can keep up.
Okay.
What character would you want to play? Dan. I'd probably want to play Dan. I know that's completely out of left field, and that's not how you guys who watch the show experienced me. But I have on occasion played the bad guy, and it's a whole different thing, and it's quite ridiculous sometimes, and you have a lot of fun, and you get to be exactly the kind of dick you really shouldn't be in real life. Paul knows all about that. It's like, he gets to put it all out there and just stir stuff up, and he had a lot of fun with it, and I think I would like to have a crack at that too, in the parallel universe. And I'd like to see him play Andy, because then it would just be weird as hell. What was the other one? Was who was your least favorite and who's your favorite?
Yeah.
Who's your least favorite? I don't know if there's any least favorites. I don't know if from character point of view. See, that feels bad, because then it feels like I'm actually saying something about an actor, which is not really.
We can skip that part. Don't worry.
And that doesn't mean there's someone I'm thinking of deciding not to say. I'm just like, when I'm thinking of people, I'm like, nah, I don't think I'd say that. But no, I think they all served their purpose and all had I always liked that about One Tree Hill. They had the younger kids and they had the older people, and there was a separation to a certain extent, and they had stuff to do with each other. And unlike some of the other shows, they gave the older characters, because that was my experience. I was in with the older characters, really, even though age-wise I was probably in between the actors, and I thought that they had a lot of respect and gave a lot of time to those characters. And I like that. I thought that was the strength of the show. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, totally. It actually reminds me a bit. Have you seen Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid continuation?
Yeah, love Cobra Kai. You watching that?
I love Cobra Kai.
I think they nailed it.
Completely.
That should not have worked. There was nothing about that show. When you first hear it, we're going to do Karate Kid 30 years later, that should not have worked. And they nail it. But yeah, I guess what you're saying is the same thing. They got the older people and the younger, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I fully agree. So I watched it on my own, and then I told my wife, you have to watch it, because she didn't want to watch it with me. We watched it. As soon as we finished, we just started watching it again. Like, it was that good. So
yeah.
But that's great that you love that. I mean, so well,
well, I'm the right age for it too, because I'm not sure what our difference in age is, but I was 10 years old when that movie came out. So I experienced it as the phenomenon of 1984, like this big, that was everywhere. I made one of those headbands. I drew the stuff on, made the headband, and everyone's doing the crane kick and all that silly stuff. So and then you saw the sequels get shitty, and you saw the next Karate Kid, and then it all went away, and you're just like, oh, well, it's this nostalgic thing from the 80s, and it stays there. The fact that they brought it with such intelligence, and then these performances, the Johnny Lawrence guy, it's just how now he's funny, and you're making fun of the idea of being a man out of time and not understanding anything, which I can relate to. Love it. So yeah, I think, and so then it pulls in people like me who've got that original nostalgic feel. But I think they do the kids really great on that too. I think they I think that they have a good balance there. And did you see is it the third season when they go to Japan? I don't want to spoil it for anyone else.
Yeah, the third.
You see all that stuff?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So good. And the way they constantly tie it back to all of the movies, and it's done with like respect as well when they get to like the Mr. Miyagi character, who unfortunately passed away in real life. It's treated with such sincerity and respect, but then also, like you said, it's got this like dark sort of humor to it as well, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, like it knows.
Right, it's not taking itself too seriously, and at the same time, when it does decide to take it seriously, it commits. Because, and that, just speaking as an actor and writer, that's really tough to walk that line. I've been on sets before where you're trying to find the truth of this moment, and there are all these like shortcuts as actors, and especially if people aren't getting the day, and all these other things, we've got to move on, and this is your last take and all that shit, all this pressure comes on. So there's these tendencies sometimes to just sort of cut corners, and it never works. Like, the audience picks up on it. Months later, people watching at home, they go, bullshit, and so you make that mistake a couple of times. You go, no matter what happens, you need to try to thread that needle. And if you're faking it, it's tough. And what you're talking about with the Miyagi stuff, and when they do get, it's sentimental, it's potentially cheesy, and then the fact that it isn't is kind of a minor miracle, I think. Well done.
Yeah, it is wonderful. I love it. I hope they never stop making it. That's like how I feel about it.
Well, and that means that it'll get bad at some point. But I hear you saying. Sometimes you should stop.
That's true. Well, I hope we
you're right.
A few more seasons. Just a couple more.
Yes, a few more. I think they have legs. I think they have some legs in there.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's pretend. Did we answer all of her questions? I think we did. You said, yeah. If you how did you feel being on such an iconic show? I mean, does it kind of stay with you? Like, as in, like,
it's not. To be honest, it's not a big part of my life right now. And not for any negative reasons. It's just you move on to a certain extent, and that's why I've actually really enjoyed doing this. When you got in touch. And sometimes that is the thing about when you're getting in touch with someone and asking them things like that. There are certain times where maybe people don't want to do it, but it's timing, right? Life is timing. Yeah. You called me at a time where I was like, I haven't thought about that for a while. I watched some of your episodes and went, these guys know what they're doing. Good show. I did my due diligence. And then I was like, it'd be really nice to actually think about that time again. And on some level, it's as the time has passed and as the world has changed, and I'm a dad, and you have all these other things going on. It sort of sneaks up on you gradually that the show is this iconic and now nostalgic, very important thing to people. And as that has occurred to me, I'm very proud to be part of it, and very happy to have, because there's a lot of stuff you do that nobody ever sees, or they see once and that's it. It's a paycheck. You just, and this is definitely not one of those jobs for me. It was a lovely time in my life, and I can see how much it means to people, and I understand why it does, because I think it was very well made. And so from that point of view, I'm really happy to be a part of something like that. I just didn't know it at the time. You don't know it like at the time, and again, I was second season. So it was a show that people were watching. We were getting good numbers, but it's, you don't know what's I would not have expected 17, 18 years later to have somebody want to talk about it on a podcast which didn't even exist yet. So, these things are nice surprises after a while, and I think it's great,
Well, and it's so nice to hear you speak about it in that way. And it's also so nice to hear like what you're doing now. Like, it's so interesting, and hopefully, well, I'm sure that it will be, but the fandom, the people that are fans of you from One Tree Hill and these other projects will also want to support you in these other things that you're doing, because, to sort of give back to you that what you've given to all of us. So,
yeah. And that is a lot of what it's about, right? There's a conversation going when you get in these situations. And I know what it's like on the other side too. I have the actors that I've followed for years or grew up with and admired, like the people who enjoyed the William Tell show. There was a show, actually, you're from England, so you might remember this. Remember they did the Robin Hood shows in the 80s, Robin Hood Sherwood.
Yep.
Michael Praed and Jason Connery. So that was my 10-year-old going, holy crap, this is amazing. And there were a lot of similarities to the way that show came together. And the way that people talk to me now, they're treating me like I'm Michael Praed or something, you know what I mean? And to me, I can totally hook into that, because I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I still remember that guy as like an important part of my childhood, So there's something really quite lovely to be that to somebody else, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of a mind trip in some ways, but yeah, the idea of wanting to support people and the other things they're doing, I think that's great. It's like a little community, Come follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and stuff.
I'll put perfect timing. I'll put the links to
there we go.
Your Instagram, to your Twitter. That will all be in the podcast description.
Because I do my updates on anything like that from there, because that is the conversation.
And I can't wait, and I'm sure our listeners can't wait to support you, with upcoming movies that you're writing or producing, and the book and the YouTube page as well. And I'm just incredibly grateful for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Thank you so much. And we'd love to have you on again sometime to discuss.
Well, maybe when Dom catches up with the storylines, will be.
That would be perfect. Yeah, because he
can come and say hi to him.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And then we can sort of talk about the conclusions and all of that stuff. And just thank you so much for your time. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks. It was nice to meet you. And good luck, man. 2025. It'll roll around. You'll get there.
Yeah. We'll send you a picture from Trick and.
Fantastic.